Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University. School of Education, SOA. Certificate in Elementary Teacher Education, for Tripura State, SATE. Compulsory courses. MES 023 Emerging Issues in Elementary Education. Block 1 Technology and Environmental Education. Unit 2 Interdependence within the Environment, 2.1 Introduction. In the last unit you have learned the basic components of the environment and you must have realized that each component is essential for the survival of life on Earth. For the sake of simplicity these components are taught separately, but they are interdependent. Environmentalists have often noted that a degraded environment leads to a scrabble for scarce resources and may culminate in poverty and even conflict. No life on the Earth is possible if there is no atmosphere or hydrosphere. We always see animals dependent on each other and on plants. But vice versa is equally true. The trees provide food and oxygen to animals and the animals supply carbon dioxide to plants. Plants use this carbon dioxide for food manufacturing. This interdependency is not limited between plants and animals only. It is equally important between the biotic, living, and abiotic, non-living, worlds also. There are continuous interactions between living and non-living objects of the world. These interactions are in the form of exchanges of material and energy. In the present unit, we will see how these interactions occur. 2.2 Objectives. At the end of this unit, you should be able to explore the interdependence between the living organisms and its physical environment. Explain the structure and functions of ecosystem. Differentiate between food chain and food web. Explain environmental degradation and appreciate the need for environmental education. Ecosystem dot. After going through the previous unit, you should now be familiar with the concept and components of environment. You have also understood the relevance of ecological hierarchy in understanding our biosphere. Now let us try to understand how the living and the other components of the environment behave in order to make the total environment functional. For this we have to give more emphasis on the ecosystem. Because in the ecological hierarchy ecosystem is the first stage, which consists of both the physical environment and the biotic community. Again, after reading the ecological hierarchy, you can say that the biosphere is a big entity and this big entity can be divided into smaller integral components called ecosystems. The term ecosystem was given by Tansley and is made up of two words, eco and system. Eco implies the environment and the system implies an arrangement of its components, so related as to form a whole unit. The most popular definition of ecosystem is the grouping of interdependent populations and their related environment, which comprise a self-sustaining system within the living world. An ecosystem may be of any size. It may be very large, like the whole globe that can be taken to comprise a single ecosystem. On the other end, this system can be very small, of the size of rain puddle. But these two extreme sizes of the ecosystem are very difficult to handle. Most of the ecosystems are of intermediate size. We generally study our globe by making its artificial subdivisions into units of smaller ecosystems. 2.3.1 Types of ecosystems. Broadly, the ecosystem can be divided into two categories, natural and man-made. Natural ecosystem. These types of ecosystems operate themselves under natural conditions and are further divided into two categories. A. Terrestrial, for example forest, grassland, desert etc. B. Aquatic, it may be again of two types. Freshwater, it may be running WPTER system like spring, stream or river, or static water system like water of lake, ponds, puddles, ditch, swamp etc. Marine, it consists of deep bodies such as oceans, seas, or estuaries. Man-made ecosystem, these are artificial ecosystems managed by man, such as cropland, aquarium, garden and dam etc. These ecosystems may be of different sizes. But you must keep in your mind that these ecosystems are simply separated from each other with time and space, but functionally they are linked with each other, forming an integrated entity. There exists no functional boundary y between them. 2.4 Structure of ecosystem. On TLIE basis of its structure and function, ecosystem has B11 defined as any unit that includes all the organisms, i.e. the co-NRN unities in a given area, interacting with TLIE physical environment so that a flow of energy gives rise to clearly defined trophic structure, biotic diversity and material cycles, i.e. XJ-IgE of material between living and non-living components within the system. The term trophic level and material cycle will be discussed later in sections 2.5 and 2.8.2 of this unit. From structural point of view, an ecosystem has two major components. A. Abiotic components, i.e. non-living components, and B. Biotic components, i.e. living components. 2.4.1 Abiotic components, non-living, i.e. the basic elements, such as phosphorus, sulfur, carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, etc., and compounds, such as chlorophyll and organic materials as proteins, carbohydrates, lipids etc., present in the environment, and E. the climate of the given region, such as temperature, rainfall, wind etc. 2.4.2 Biotic components, living, Inc. Here are all the living organisms of the environment. From the functional point of view, an ecosystem has two types of biotic components. I. Autotroph component. Auto means self and troph means nourishing. Self-food producing biotic species is called autotrophs. They are capable of fixing sunlight energy and produce their own food from simple inorganic substances through the process of photosynthesis. Hence they are also called producers. This component is mainly constituted by green plants including photosynthetic bacteria. Based on the size, autotrophs are of two types. Microproducer, microscopic, which are smaller in size such as phytoplankton, algae, etc., and macroproducer, macroscopic, which are bigger in size like green plants, grasses, crops, etc. Heterotroph components. Hetero means other and troph means nourishing. Those organisms that cannot produce their own food are called heterotrophs. They utilize, rearrange, and decompose the food formed by the autotrophs. Thus, heterotrophs are also called consumers since they are unable to produce their own food and must obtain it by consuming other organisms. All animals including man come in this category. We can further subdivide heterotrophs according to the sources of their food energy. Heterotrophs can be of the following types. Herbivores, those animals which feed on plants are called herbivores, e.g. rabbit, rat, cow etc. Carnivores or predators, those animals which feed on other animals, are called carnivores, e.g. lion, tiger, fox, vulture etc. Omnivores, those animals which feed on both plants and animals are called omnivores, e.g. man, and saprivores, animals which feed on decaying organic materials are called saprivore, examples being microorganisms and fungi. Like autotrophs, heterotrophs are also categorized as microconsumer. They are popularly known as decomposers. These decomposers are saprophages or saprophytes, heterotrophic organism, which break down the complex compounds of the dead organisms, absorb some of the decomposed products, and release simple substances usable by the producers. Microorganisms also produce growth-promoting and growth-inhibiting substances that are important in regulating metabolism of the ecosystem as a whole. Macroconsumers, all the herbivores, carnivores and omnivores come under this category. Herbivores are also known as primary consumers. Nutritional habits of different biotic components of an ecosystem have been shown diagrammatically in Fig. 2.1. Look at the screen. Fig. 2.1. A diagrammatical representation of nutritional habit and nutritional relationships among different biotic components of an ecosystem. There are no hard and fast lines of separation between such categories as producers, consumers and decomposers, because some species of organism occupy intermediate positions in series and others are able to shift their mode of nutrition according to their environmental circumstances. 2.5. Trophic structure. While defining the ecosystem in section 2.4, a term, trophic structure, was used. Let us understand this widely used term in the ecosystem. The trophic structure of an ecosystem is one kind of producer-consumer arrangement, where each food level is one, known as trophic level. In a food chain, each level of producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer or decomposer is a trophic level. In the order of arrangement they are known as first, second, third, fourth trophic levels. When all environmental education the trophic levels are linked they form a food chain. But while assigning the trophic level of any species, always keep in mind that the trophic level is not fixed for any species, since any given species may utilize more than one level. For example, human beings are both plant and animal eaters, so it can occupy both the second as well as third trophic level. The number of stages does not usually exceed 4 and the number of organisms diminishes rapidly with increase in trophic level. The labeling of trophic structure along with consumer and food nature has been shown in Fig. 2.2. Look at the screen. Fig. 2.2. A diagrammatical representation of trophic structure. 2.6. Food chain. The scheme of feeding relationship that unites the members of a biological community is shown in the form of food chain. It is a sequential arrangement of species based on their food habits, i.e. eating and being eaten away by others in turn. The entire food chain starts with the producer followed by consumers of different levels in a sequential order. For example, a food chain in a grassland ecosystem till the end starts with various types of grass and forbs, the producers. The grasses are eaten by grasshoppers, first order consumer, which in turn are eaten by frog, second order consumer. The frog is eaten by the snake, third order consumer, and the snake by the hawk, fourth order consumer. Similarly, in the pond ecosystem, the food chain order is represented as phytoplankton, water gens, small fish, bigger fish, larger animals, and so on. In nature, we generally distinguish two types of food chains, grazing and detritus. Food chain. 2.6.1 Grazing food chain. This type of chain starts from living green plants and moves to grazing herbivores and on to carnivores, and so on. This type of food chain is directly dependent on an influx of the solar radiation. The above discussed grassland and pond ecosystems are examples. This type of food chain. 2.6.2 Detritus food chain. This type of food chain starts from dead organic matter into microorganisms and they organisms feeding on detritus, detritivores, and their predators. Such ecosystems are less dependent on the direct solar radiation. These chiefly depend on the influx of the organic matter produced in another system. This type of food chain operates in decomposing the accumulated litter. Thus we can treat it as nature's inbuilt system to clean up the environment. It is clear from the diagram that both the food chains end up in a similar manner but they start differently. 2.7 Food web. You have noted above that in a food chain there exists direct feeding relationship within an ecosystem. But under natural conditions, the linear arrangement of the food chain hardly occurs. Mostly it is interconnected. A species may occupy more than one trophic level during its life cycle or in response to changes in availability of food. For instance, many Diptera, in adulthood suck both plant and animal juices. Therefore, the system of feeding relationship often resembles a web rather than a chain. This can be well understood by the following example. In grazing food chain of grassland, which we have discussed above, In the absence of rabbit, grasses may be eaten by the mouse. The mouse in turn may be directly eaten by a hawk or by a snake first, and a hawk then consumes snake. Thus, alternatives are found which altogether constitute some sort of interlocking pattern called the food web. The grassland food web has been shown in Fig. 2.4. Here you can see 5 food chains sequenced as. Look at the screen. Fig. 2.4, diagrammatic sketch showing a food web in a grassland ecosystem. Grass, eaten by grasshopper, eaten by hawk. Grass, eaten by grasshopper, eaten by snake, eaten by hawk. Grass, eaten by rabbit, eaten by hawk or any other predator like vulture, fox or even man. Grass, eaten by mouse, eaten by hawk. Grass, eaten by mouse, eaten by snake, hawk. Grass, eaten by grasshopper, eaten by frog, eaten by snake. Eaten by hawk. Fig. 2.5, food chain sequence. Apart from the components shown in TLIE Fig. 2.5, there may also be present some other consumers like vultures, fox and man in the grassland, and if so the food web may be even more complex than shown in the figure. 2.8 Functions of ecosystem. With the background of trophic level, food chain, food web and the structure of an ecosystem, let us understand the functioning of the ecosystem. In its functional aspects, an ecosystem involves the circulation, transformation, and accumulation of energy and matter through the medium of living and non-living things. Photosynthesis, decomposition, herbivory, predation, parasitism, and other symbiotic activities are responsible for the transport and storage of materials and energy, and the interactions of the organisms engaged in these activities provide TLIE pathways of distribution. The basic functioning of an ecosystem are flow of energy and cyclic use of material. 2.8.1 Flow of energy. Flow of energy is based on the following principles. A. Solar radiation is the only source of energy for any ecosystem. Only the autotrophs can directly utilize it for the preparation of their food through photosynthesis. B. It is transferred to the consumers only through the food chain. C. The flow of energy is unidirectional, i.e. sun producer for consumer. Decomposer. The energy that is captured by the producer, plant, cannot be reversed to solar input, and that which passes to the herbivores does not pass back to the autotrophs. As it moves progressively through the various trophic levels, it is no longer available to the previous level. Thus, due to unidirectional flow of energy, the system would collapse if the primary source, the sun, is cut off or its energy is exhausted. But we need not worry because solar energy is endless, and at the same time plants are able to utilize only less than 0.1% of the total solar energy reaching the Earth's surface, and even this amount is enough to maintain the food chain. D. 100% of the total available energy in a lower trophic level is not passed to the next higher trophic level. It is only about 10% because at each level, much of the energy available to the organism is spent in the life-sustain activities like respiration, reproduction, growth, metabolism etc. of that organism. It has been shown diagrammatically in Fig. 2.6. Look at the screen. There is, consequently, a stepwise decrease of energy through the sequence of consumer trophic levels. If the secondary level receives only 10% of the energy of the producers, then the tertiary level will capture only 10% of the energy of the secondary consumer. Thus the energy availability will be very lower for the animals placed in top order of the trophic level food chain. This process limits their number. That is why you will find lower number of carnivores in comparison to herbivores. These relations have been shown in a pyramidal structure in Fig. 2.7. Fig. 2.7, total availability of energy and number of consumers at each trophic level. Till now we have discussed how energy is lost at each transfer, that is why less is available at successive levels. Thus, meat is more expensive than bread, and much less common in the human diet when there are more bellies to be fed. 2.8.2 Cyclic use of nutrients. You have learnt about nutrients in Unit 1 of this block. You also know that these nutrients come to the soil by weathering of the rocks. But the process of weathering is slow, which limits the supply of these nutrients. But the nature maintains the supply of these essential nutrients by their cyclic use. The cycling of nutrients is between the organisms and the environment in the ecosystem. It has parallel route to the energy flow in the biotic component of the ecosystem. The important distinction between the two processes is the relationship with the abiotic component. In energy flow, the abiotic component is solar energy, which is endless, but in the nutrient cycle the abiotic factors involved are some chemicals whose supply is limited. How the process occurs. A given nutrient in the soil is taken up by the root of a green plant and used in organic synthesis and is passed to other animals through the food chain. With the death and decomposition of the organisms, these nutrients are released and returned to the soil, where it is again available to the green plants. Thus, in a complete cycle, there is back and forth movement of material between the living and non-living components of the ecosystem. This movement of materials is also referred to as biogeochemical cycle. Bio refers to living organisms and geo to the rocks, soil, air, and water, and chemical to the various chemical transformations. Thus, there are three major nutritional groupings in a complete biogeochemical cycle. These are the green plants, producers, characterized by photosynthesis as their mode of nutrition, the animals or consumers characterized by consumption or ingestion of organic food, and the bacteria and fungi, the saprobes. Decomposers or reducers, characterized by their contribution to the breakdown of the dead organic matter in such a manner that it is again used by the producer. The important fact about these cycles is that their steps or stages can be slowed, blocked, or accelerated mainly because of human interference with the natural process. So, our careless interference in the cycle can paralyze the ecosystem. The generalized relation among these in cycling of materials through the ecosystem. Let's illustrate the biogeochemical cycle by taking the example of nitrogen cycle. It can be well understood by taking the example of nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen and its compounds are essential for the maintenance of tea plants. The major source of nitrogen is the atmosphere, but the plants cannot take it directly from the atmosphere. Plants can only take compound NDS of nitrogen, such as nitrates, nitrites, or ammonia. So nitrogen has to be converted in its required compound. This is done through a process called nitrogen fixation. This conversion is done through specialized bacteria present in the soil. Again, the nitrogen is put back to the atmosphere through the process of denitrification. The important steps of nitrogen cycle have been shown in Fig. 2.9. Look at the screen. Fig. 2.9, the nitrogen cycle. 2.9, environmental degradation. Based on your previous studies, you can conclude that for fulfilling the material needs, man is totally dependent on its environment. You have also learned that it is the biogeochemical cycle that makes the environment self-sustainable. According to this cyclic process, under natural conditions, organic and certain inorganic materials, which are present in limited amount in the biosphere, are continually recycled between different components of the environment. But this cyclic process is delicate. It may be disrupted by human interference. Once this biogeochemical cycle is disrupted, the natural compositions of the various components of the environmental segments are changed. The changes in the composition of the various components of the environment may lead to a situation that may be injurious to human health and properties. When the environment begins moving towards this situation, we call it environmental degradation. The environmental degradation may be avoided by give and take policy, which is called milking of the environment in Indian culture. Milking of the environment means we can take from the earth and the atmosphere only so much as we put back into them. But, for the last 5 decades, population explosion, industrial expansion, and increased energy demand have forced us to switch over our philosophy from natural harmony to its exploitation as practiced by the West. Apart from massive exploitation of the natural resources, we are producing wastes in such large quantities that natural dispersing and recycling processes could not keep pace with it. The environment has degraded to such an extent that it has become very common to notice warnings written at public places as water unfit for drinking, water unfit for bathing, fishes unfit to eat, etc. You must be feeling deeply hurt when you find this type of warnings written about our pious river water, where bath is treated not just a bath but a holy deep, a way to get moksha. The waste materials, which create environmental degradation after being pumped into the nature, are called pollutants. We will read about them in detail in Unit 3 of this block. 2.10 Need for environmental education. By reading through the sections above, you must have understood the functioning of natural environment and also its importance to our ecosystem. You have also seen, while discussing the various components of the environment, how human interference can influence the functioning of the environment. At the same time, it is also true that a single person cannot protect environment. It needs a collective approach, which is not possible without proper training. Environmental education or training should not be just for producing knowledgeable persons like other subjects, but for producing activists also. Because without being emotional for the cause of environment, it is not possible to protect it. Merely understanding the structure and function of the environment is not enough to solve our environmental crisis. This crisis is sure to grow if environmental education is not given to produce environmental activists, because then only we shall be able to realize the difference between the earth and the Mother Earth. An unnatural decoupling of humans and nature is one of the unfortunate results of high population density and urbanization. A person living in a large city is so preoccupied with surviving in a high-energy, economically competitive environment that the life-supporting natural and agricultural environments are not only out of sight but very much out of mind. Likewise, millions of poor people in underdeveloped countries who must eke out a bare existence on a day-to-day basis have no time or energy to consider the long-term consequences of their actions. To make people aware of all these aspects, it requires that environmental education is imparted at a very early age. Children often can grasp holistic and common-sense ideas better than adults, who have become SPKCIalized and set in their ways of thinking. So the environment education must be commenced at an early age. 2.11 Summary. Now you must have realized our environment is not static but dynamic interactions among its basic components. You must have understood that the physical and biological environments are interdependent. Organisms are iotally dependent on the physical environment for energy and material, and organisms also influence the physical environment by transpiring water vapor, recycling elements, energy transformations, and nutrient cycle ripple organisms in a single functional unit called ecosystem. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.